Hey everyone, so in today's video we're talking about wrist pain during push-ups or any kind of upper limb weight bearing activity where the wrist is being brought through more extension range of motion. Now one potential reason for this may be secondary to a lack of low capacity in the wrist flexors to decelerate that wrist extension. Okay, so one thing that we can start off with is manipulating the surface that the upper limbs are loading onto. So instead of the flat ground here, what we can do is we can position any kind of surface, a plate here in this scenario, up on top of a 3-inch block, where the plate is angled down and away from the body. And what you're going to notice here is that when I position my hands up onto the plate here, this reduces the wrist extension demands on the wrist, so that we can actually load into the wrist flexors much more easily at the beginning. So what we're going to begin with here are small wrist flexion pulses with the hands in contact with the plate here. Now the key thing is that when we're building pressure through the hand, we're not just building pressure through the metacarpal heads, we're actually building pressure through the fingers and the metacarpal heads to gently hover the heel of the hand up from the plate. Okay, and hold for about 1 to 2 seconds. We're going to repeat that for 10 to 12 repetitions. Okay, at the beginning we can make it easier by supinating the forearm and turning the hands out. So the right hand faces 1 o'clock, left hand faces 11 o'clock. This just makes it a little bit easier early on to get some load into the wrist flexors without aggravating any kind of wrist extension pain. So what we're going to do is we're going to do that where we're going to actually face the fingers out. We're going to provide a little bit more supination at the forearm, and then what we're going to do is we're going to load into the hands. Okay, the key thing here now is that we can manipulate the position of the knees. If I bring my knees back, there's more load in my hands. If I bring my knees forward, then my knees are helping to decelerate the load from my head and my trunk as it loads into the upper limb. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to build pressure through the whole surface area of the fingers and the metacarpal heads. So I'm going to load into the fingers, I'm going to build pressure through the fingers, metacarpal heads, and then begin to slightly hover the heels of the hand from the plate, hold for 1 to 2 seconds, and then slowly come back down. And then repeat the process, build into the fingers, metacarpal heads, and hover the heels of the hand. I'll show you that on the left side. So building pressure to the fingers, metacarpal heads, lift off, hold for 1 to 2 seconds, and then come back down. Okay, repeat that 10 to 12 reps. Again, we can make it harder by changing the position of the trunk, changing the position of the knees. Then we're going to bring the hands back into the center, so the fingers are facing forward in more in the sagittal plane, if you like, and the forearms are more pronated. So same thing, we're going to build pressure to the fingers, build pressure to the metacarpal heads, and then hover the heels off the plate. You're going to feel a lot of load into the wrist flexors, and then slowly return down. Build pressure, just to hover, and slowly return down. We're not building through big ranges of motion here. All we're doing is we're building pressure to the point where we're just hovering the heels of the hand off the surface and then returning back down. And now as we progress, what we want to try and do is we want to try and increase the amount of wrist extension range of motion as we continue to challenge the capacity of the wrist flexors to decelerate that wrist extension. So we're going to engage the hands in the same position. We're still going to engage the fingers and the metacarpal heads, but now we're just going to add a gentle rocking forward motion, and that forward rocking motion is going to increase the challenge on the fingertips to decelerate that forward momentum of the trunk and the head moving forward. So at the beginning, we're starting this position here. We're building pressure down through the fingers, through the metacarpal heads, maintaining that, so I should feel in terms of the pressure across my hand, I should feel heavy in the metacarpal heads, heavy in the fingers, but light in the heel of the hand. I'm maintaining that pressure as I bring my trunk forward. As I bring my trunk forward, I should feel the pressure increase in my fingertips, and I'm using the fingertip pressure to decelerate that forward momentum. Okay, so at the beginning, we're building that pressure, metacarpal heads, fingers, maintain that as I progress the body forward. As I get my head over my fingers, that's when my wrist flexors are decelerating that forward momentum. And then I can use the fingers to push me back to the starting point. So again, build pressure, metacarpal heads, fingers, maintain that as I rock forward. The pressure increases in the fingers to decelerate, and I can return back to the starting position. Again, 10 to 12 repetitions. If we need to, we can turn the upper limbs out again, so we provide a little bit more supination just to make it easier. And we're rocking forward, building that pressure into the fingertips, and then returning to the starting point. Okay, so this will allow us to increase challenge on the wrist flexors to decelerate that wrist extension range of motion as we engage in more and more wrist extension.